Everyone thinks Afghanistan's modern conflicts began with 9/11. They're wrong. The seeds were sown decades earlier. The crucible of Operation Cyclone, a covert CIA program of unprecedented scale, forged the very landscape of contemporary asymmetric warfare. It was a Cold War gambit, a daring, desperate play to bleed the Soviet Union, but its echoes reverberate across battlefields even today. In December 1979, Soviet tanks rolled across the Amu Darya River, invading Afghanistan. Moscow saw it as a necessary intervention to prop up a faltering communist regime, a buffer against perceived Western encroachment. Washington saw a golden opportunity. President Jimmy Carter, initially stunned, quickly authorized covert aid to the Afghan Mujahideen resistance. This wasn't merely a symbolic gesture. It was the genesis of one of the largest and most expensive covert operations in CIA history. The scale of Cyclone would balloon under Ronald Reagan. His administration, driven by a fervent anti-Soviet stance, dramatically increased funding and sophisticated weaponry. They aimed not just to harass the Soviets, but to inflict a debilitating, long-term wound. The CIA, working closely with Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence, or ISI, channeled billions of dollars in arms, supplies, and training to various Mujahideen factions. This wasn't a unified army, but a collection of disparate, often rival, groups united by their opposition to the Soviets. A crucial turning point came with the introduction of the FIM-92 Stinger missile. The Soviets' Mi-24 Hind attack helicopters were devastating, dominating the skies. The Stinger, a shoulder-fired, heat-seeking missile, changed everything. Suddenly, Soviet air superiority was challenged. Mujahideen fighters, previously vulnerable, could now down helicopters and low-flying jets. The psychological impact was immense, turning the tide in many engagements. Between 1986 and 1989, Stingers accounted for hundreds of Soviet aircraft losses, according to various estimates. The cost of maintaining the occupation, both in lives and resources, became unsustainable for Moscow. The Soviets finally withdrew in February 1989, a humiliating retreat that many historians view as a significant contributing factor to the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union itself just 2 years later. Operation Cyclone had achieved its primary objective, but the victory came at a profound, unforeseen cost. The very forces empowered by the CIA, radicalized, well-armed, and battle-hardened, would soon turn their attention elsewhere or on each other. The seeds of future conflicts were already sown. One key problem was the lack of a coherent post-withdrawal strategy. The U.S. essentially disengaged, leaving a power vacuum and a country awash in weaponry and competing warlords. This neglect proved catastrophic. Among those who gained experience and influence during the Soviet-Afghan War was a wealthy Saudi expatriate named Osama bin Laden. He established al-Qaeda, a global jihadist organization, during this period. Bin Laden, along with thousands of foreign fighters drawn to Afghanistan by the call of jihad, saw the Soviet defeat as proof of divine intervention and a template for future battles against perceived Western hegemony. The enemy had simply shifted. Furthermore, the vast network of arms trafficking, training, and radicalization fostered by Operation Cyclone continued long after the Soviets left. These channels facilitated the growth of extremist groups across the region and beyond. The rise of the Taliban in the mid-1990s was another direct consequence. Emerging from the chaos of the post-Soviet Civil War, they promised order and strict Islamic law, gaining popular support initially even from elements within the Pakistani ISI. The Taliban provided sanctuary for al-Qaeda, culminating in the 9/11 attacks, which then triggered the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan in 2001. The wheel had turned, and the very nation the U.S. had helped liberate became a new battlefield. Operation Cyclone stands as a stark lesson in geopolitical blowback. A tactical victory in the Cold War, it inadvertently fueled the rise of radical Islamic terrorism and reshaped the global security landscape for decades to come. The CIA's Afghan Gambit was a masterstroke against the Soviets, but it created a hydra-headed monster whose legacy we grapple with to this day. The modern battlefield, complex and often asymmetrical, bears its indelible mark. Subscribe to uncover more untold stories of the Cold War's most daring and dangerous covert operations.